Good afternoon, guys. Welcome back to another workout. I am actually at a new facility here in Tampa today. It's called Flex and Flow, and they have some awesome, not only murals on the walls, but the equipment is insane. They have a full recovery room with cryotherapy. They have in-body, they have infrared, just about everything, including cold plunge pools. So this facility has so much awesome stuff. So I have a feeling that today's workout, although we are going to be going through one of my Miss Bikini Olympia programs, there's going to be a lot of replace exercises because I really want to take advantage of some of this new stuff that I don't get to use in my normal gym. So it is predominantly a glute focused program and shoulders, as you guys know, but today we might make a couple of little trade outs so that there are some slight differences in the total number of weekly sets, because why not? So let's go and get started. I'm really pumped for today's workout. So I am just playing around with some of the equipment here. They have so many options. I don't even know what to choose to start with. I'm meant to be hitting my glute max. So I've got a kickback in the actual program as exercise number 1, but I'm just trying to find what they've got here because I mean, like, look at this thing. There's just so much fun stuff. All right, so first exercise is a glute max exercise. I'm gonna do unilateral. They have this fantastic kickback machine, but you'll notice I've actually got it banded. So there are so many different iterations that you can do, but I love putting the band on this particular machine because it keeps constant tension. So there's no point where the movement is there's no lax. So it feels really smooth and really comfortable. So if you haven't tried a banded kickback before, I've just got, this is probably the moderate resistance band. So this is the one for those of you that do have bands at home. That's the one that I'm using. And that's a really good amount of tension. So I'm just kind of securing it where the plates are all loaded, and it works really nicely. Last time we were here, they had a posing workshop for men's physique, bodybuilding, and bikini. So there were so many people here. It was really busy. So it's actually nice to have this place almost all to ourselves today. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock does the job. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you feel like this also loads your quads quite a bit, or is it mostly glute for you?
Definitely a quad.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the movement paths, like depending on what machine you use, sometimes you'll feel it mostly in your glute, sometimes it'll move to the quad. So I wouldn't discount this exercise as not being something that's helping with muscle growth for your quads, because when I finally do get to failure, like my quads are probably an 8 out of 10 as well. So this is one of those unique situations where, like, when I'm tracking my volume, I would be assigning something to both of those muscle groups. But
maybe half a set or something?
Yeah, like I would probably do 0.5 of a factor or something like that instead of giving it a full, it's equal.
But would 6 sets of glute kickback equal 3 sets of quads?
Yeah,
I'm not convinced.
Yeah, probably.
So it's stress to the quads, but it's not a targeted adequate stress, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think it'd probably be half. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna do another set. So I think a lot of folks would probably ask, like, if you're doing a unilateral exercise, would you rest between legs or rest between arms? I think if you're having a hard time like I am right now breathing, definitely rest and get your breath back, because you want to be able to do the next set and again stay in that hypertrophy rep range. Or if I went straight in and I only did 4 or 5 reps, then I'm not really working in that effective hypertrophy rep range. So yeah, take your time between, I guess, sides if you're still struggling to breathe like I am. Oh, this is just a I guess, perfect example of what happens when you don't do any cardio for many months. I have done nothing. I haven't done any walking, no spin, like nothing. So my heart rate is getting so high for all of these like higher rep ranges, but I will definitely have to introduce a little bit more cardio here in a minute, because I am now officially 8 weeks out from my competition. So I'm gonna have to start increasing energy expenditure to keep that deficit moving. So come around here for a second. I just want to show you the difference in foot position. So Sam is using the flat part of the pad or the bench here. I'm putting my foot up on the top part. So when he brings his quad, like foot in, he's got a little bit of tension here on that quad, because I've got my foot up higher. When my foot comes in, I've got a lot more bend. This is flexed significantly more, which I think is why I'm getting more of a pump in my quad. So I'm not going to change it because it feels good. But again, depending on what you wanted to target or how it feels for you, you could potentially move your feet around. So you notice I kind of get down in like a pretty athletic position here. The way that it's, I guess, described here on the side plate. Oh, you've got the weight on still, yeah. I would have done it fine. It's telling you to put your belly on the bench. Now you could do that, but when I kick out here, this is not really getting full range of motion, at least not full flexion in my glute. So in this position, my glutes flex, like I can feel it, but I could go like, I need to go up more to get maximal like flexion. So when I get down in this position here, I have much more tension on that upper part of my glute. Yeah, and you can see I'm also up here on the top part of the plate. Yeah, that's way better. Fitness. That's my third one. Glute max, check. We're moving on to 2 glute medius exercises next. So my app is telling me I've got a cable hip abduction. If I had to use a machine over a cable, I would, usually, most times, just for the convenience. And they've got 2 great hip abduction exercises. So I'm gonna do both of those machines that they have here. So let's go and check out their standing hip abduction. So I think in the last video that I recorded for you guys, we were out at Crunchland Lakes and they had a different brand. I really like this particular Premier brand. It's got a really nice smooth movement. Obviously you've got plenty of place for your hands and it's very effective for your glute abduction or for your glute medius. I'm doing higher reps on this machine, so somewhere around 20, but again, anything above 8. If you prefer to do heavier, I guess, high-load training, there is no disadvantage to doing that either. I personally just enjoy doing high reps or low-load training. So typically for like a new muscle group, if you haven't hit it, I'd like to do like 1 or 2 warm-up sets. And generally speaking, it'll be like 50% of my known like rep max for that exercise. And then I'll move up to like 75 or 85% of my working weight. And I usually do like 5 reps, 3 reps, and then I go into my first working set. So that first one, I was just kind of playing around with the load. So I did quite a high rep range, but this will be my first official working set. I mentioned earlier that my program called for the cable hip abduction. So super easy, we can go in and replace the exercise. You'll notice that it's showing all hip abduction exercises. So anything that targets the glute medius. So if I type in standing hip abduction, there it is. And then we're going to swap exercise and it'll give you the option to either replace it for all future workouts or just for today. So I'm just going to go no, just for today. Because I probably use the cable when I'm back in my normal gym. So we'll go in. I actually did 20 reps with some crazy amount of weight and we'll keep going. See how I go for my next set. At the moment, I have been doing probably just over 30 sets a week on glutes, and half of them are done on glute medius, just to make sure that I've got like even distribution. So it's not all your log glute, because bikini is so specific in particular. You don't want to have like anything over dominant. So a nice split. Up next, I have a dumbbell crossover step up. However, I mentioned today that I was going to do a lot of replacements. So again, it's just a unilateral exercise that targets the quads and the glutes. So technically, I can do any other exercise that targets the quad and the glute. So I'm going to use the pendulum today. I haven't used this particular brand. So this is the Premier pendulum squat. Last week we used another one just on the other side of the gym. This one looks like it might load a little bit lighter, which is a good thing. Since this is a unilateral exercise, I'm going to be a lot weaker when I'm just using one leg. So we're doing 3 sets of 10 reps on this machine today, and it's going to be extremely unpleasant. Let's do it. Okay, what I love about this is it has an adjustable foot plate, which means we can make this either heavy quad focus or we can make it more glute focus. So right now it's in a position where it's very vertical. That's going to target my quads a lot more because I've got a lot more forward knee travel. If I move this down, don't know how to do it yet, but we'll work it out. It would help target glutes a little bit more. And again, I want a little bit more glute today. So let's try that. Look at me being all mechanical and stuff. Wasn't it last time we were trying to we were doing the RDL. I couldn't do the belt squat. Usually I need somebody to help me to do these things. Not today. Do you want to jump in? I did staggered stance, yeah. It's still too heavy for just single leg. I just did 5 for a warm up. Yeah, it's good. You might want to try moving the plate around too. When I tried that, so I originally said to you like a single leg pendulum squat. This is still a little bit too heavy to fully take my foot off. So instead you'll see me doing a split squat or a staggered stance, just because I do need a little bit of extra support for this movement. So I'll probably put a lightweight on here, but ultimately it's still targeting the quad, still getting a bit of glute, but it's a really, really smooth movement. I really like this. Heart rate 165. I've just started searching for the exercise we're actually doing here, which is a staggered stance pendulum squat. We're just gonna update that for today's session. And it's baby weights. What have I got on there? 20 pounds. Surprisingly very challenging, but I'd have to go and look at the actual machine to see what it loads. But for my own tracking purposes, I usually just track the weight that I'm putting on the machine. Just so that it makes it a little bit easier. Otherwise, if you're changing between gyms like I do all the time, you'll probably find that the machines load differently everywhere. It's just you're constantly chasing your tail. Sorry. This is why it's important to think about the rate of perceived exertion when you're training. Because sometimes, again, depending on what machines you're using, you could be using like 60, 70, 80 pounds more at a different gym. So if you're not really paying attention, you could do that set and be completely undershooting it. So again, RPE 7 to 10 is where you want to be to optimize muscle growth. Don't you stop, 'cause tonight it's on the line. Show me how you get on down. Close my eyes, take me for a ride. Elio said. All right, hopefully the next exercise is easy. That exercise was from a program that I hadn't yet finished. Sorry, this was from, I think this is my 4th day. You can see once you actually complete an exercise, or sorry, your whole session, in the workout app, it's going to tell you what your volume was. I didn't use the timer because I was using the timer on my watch yesterday. But now it shows you all of your completed movements. And if you accidentally made a mistake in any of those, you can go in and edit. You can play around with what weights you used. But if you're somebody like me that tracks your weekly volume and your session volume, it tells you right here. So yeah, and then when it's finished, all of the little check marks will show up that you've done those exercises. So I'm actually working out from one of the sessions that I skipped earlier this week. So we now have, why is there nothing easy on this program? We're gonna go do upper body. My legs need a break, they're toast right now, and I wanna be able to do it well without injuring myself. So we're gonna go over and do some lateral raises, and then another rear delt or shoulder exercise only for the rear delt. So let's go and head into the cables and the dumbbells. All right, so the next exercise is for my, I guess, lateral shoulder head. Again, just thinking about like my total volume and what I'm trying to do at the moment to optimize growth, but also stay healthy and injury-free. I'm doing about 30 sets on shoulders. So I'm doing about 9 on my anterior, 9 on the medial, and 9 on my posterior. Now, all of these are kind of like working independent of one another. So if we're trying to optimize, I've always talked about maybe somewhere between 20 and even 30 working sets on an individual muscle group. If you're an advanced lifter, there may be some subtle benefits to going a little bit higher, but at the moment, there aren't a whole lot of really high volume training studies that would suggest that doing more is better. But here's the thing, when we're doing different shoulder exercises, there is usually a little bit of crossover between each of the heads. So what I have found is as soon as I start to venture into that like 30 to 35 weekly sets on my shoulders, I'm starting to get pretty sore, and then I'm just training through pain. So my sweet spot is about 30. Now for you, if you haven't got any shoulder injuries and you really want to hammer your like front deltoid, you could probably take it up a little bit higher from what I am doing. Similarly said, you could do a little more volume on your rear delt as well. But today's exercise is a kneeling lateral raise. So there are so many variations you could do: standing, seated, kneeling. This is really just taking away any momentum. You can't cheat in this exercise. It just makes it very strict. So you're not using like any swaying motion or anything like that. It requires a little bit more stabilizing from your core because I'm on my knees. But outside of that, it's still hitting the same muscle group. So again, I've been training for like 2 decades now. So it's just fun to have some exercise alternatives and a bit of variety in my program. So let's do these. I'm just gonna look in the mirror so I can actually make sure I'm doing these right. I think one of the things that I have, I guess, changed over the years with how I do a lateral raise is I'm a little bit more, again, if I'm thinking about hitting the lateral deltoid, I actually want to curl my little finger up a little bit more. You can just see here from doing a raise where your thumb is driving the motion. This is targeting, putting all of the load here. As soon as I rotate my fingers a little bit and I've got my little finger kind of up, this is where that load is placed. So you'll notice when I finish the movement, I'm kind of thumbs down, little fingers facing up. So again, if you didn't want to target that part, you could certainly roll it around, but now you're just putting a bit more stress here on the anterior part of your shoulder. So yeah, I'm just coming up to elbow height, ear height, elbow height. Elbow in line with my ear, at least as close as I can. And then I kind of rotate back in. So out and around. And then my fingers kind of come back in like this in the center, and I almost like clink the weights together. If you prefer to do, so I'm doing 20 sets of 20, which is technically low load training. I am using a very lightweight for a lot of reps. Now, the research would indicate that provided you are performing the exercise with a high degree of effort, RPE to 7 to 10, whether you train with low loads like I'm doing today, or high load or traditional strength training, so like 8 to 12, they can both sufficiently activate all the motor units within your muscle and then contribute to muscle growth. So thinking about like what are the key principles of signaling muscle growth, so creating muscle protein synthesis. We need mechanical tension, and we can create that high degree of mechanical tension with low loads and high loads. So again, this is just a personal preference. I don't mind doing high reps because for me, I'm so much better able to gauge where I am on my like rate of perceived exertion when I can really feel the burning sensation, as opposed to perhaps using traditional like high load training. I just have a harder time knowing whether, was I really at failure? Was I not? Was I just being a wimp? Because I can't really feel it. So again, all of my like isolation exercises, so smaller muscle groups, you will tend to see me doing, I guess, low load training. Next exercise, rear delts. So I'm gonna do a unilateral exercise, so just one side. And hopefully this load's light enough because it's such a tiny little muscle. It doesn't need much. So usually I will set the cable tower like right in line with like where my shoulder is, perhaps just a little bit lower, since when I put my hands out straight, my hand's a little bit lower here. So I usually put my supporting hand on the cable. They've actually got a lovely handle on this particular tower, and we're just pulling straight out and across. Now here, I don't really have a very good stretch across my rear delt yet, so I'm actually gonna take myself out a little bit more. So now you can see I've got a lot more kind of like, I guess this is passive tension just here. I'm not really doing anything. It's just because the muscle is lengthened or in that elongated position, there's already tension here. So again, pulling out and across. Now I've got nothing to hold on to. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm kind of pulling down and like across my body. That feels really good. Like it's almost following the natural like path of the muscle. So it is angling down. So I'm kind of moving through the same movement path as my muscle. So you can also do this exercise if you like, just in a standing position as well. So again, there's no like advantage or disadvantage to doing either of those. It's just a nice alternative. So you'll see it in my programs. I'll usually stick to one version for a full 6 weeks before I get bored, and then I'll switch it up. But ultimately, standing or kneeling or half kneeling, which is what I'm doing, is still targeting the same muscle group. I could not help pass up this equipment. Now, I don't have to do this exercise today. I've already hit my back plenty of times. My full 6 sets per week is all I do at the moment to shrink my baby back. But this is possibly my favorite machine for a plate loaded machine for back ever. It's got so many different positions. This is a premier machine for anyone that has a gym at home or they're looking to add a new piece to their gym. Premier. Check this out. Multiple grips. So we can go neutral grip. We can go wide grip. You can flip it over, slightly pronated. You've got all the options. So I'm gonna go, yeah. One of the things that you want to avoid doing is exercise redundancy. In fact, I've got a video that's going up about that probably in the next week or two that really talks about this from the scientific perspective. But to sum this up, you want to avoid doing, the same movement pattern and the same muscle group like more than 6 times within a single session. So if you are doing back day, you want to make sure that you're hitting your lower back, your rhomboids, your lats, your traps, all of those things, so that there's not too much redundancy on one muscle group, because eventually there are going to be diminishing returns. So no more than 6 sets on a particular muscle group when you're working in a session. This guy behind the camera, Nick, asked a really good question, and I think it's worth talking about. So, do I have a preference training in the warmth or in the cooler environment? So I guess first off, you want your muscle to be warm when you start to prevent injury, to make sure that you've got good nutrient delivery to the tissue and clearance of any of those metabolic waste products from your muscle. But heat also causes you to be more fatigued. Now, that might sound like a bad thing when it comes to muscle growth, but ultimately what it's probably doing is it's going to allow you to get to failure faster. So you may find that, number one, you're able to do fewer reps with the same load that you do in a cooler climate like temperature, or alternatively, you might be able to lift less weight for the same number of repetitions, if that makes sense. So I personally can't stand training in the heat, but that's just because I have such bad thermoregulation. My body sucks in the cold as well. I'm just the worst. I need to train at between 70 and 68 degrees. It's so precise. But yeah, there's no necessarily, there's no downsides. It doesn't impede muscle growth signaling or anything like that. It just will compromise your performance. So if you are somebody that's athletic and you want to train really hard because you're working towards a performance-based goal or a strength-based goal, then you probably want to be able to regulate your body. But you can also adapt too. So if you train in a heated environment, your body will get used to doing that, and you adapt. So yeah, when you're not doing it consistently though, like me right now, this is quite warm in here. I'm having a bad day. Yo, Sailor Moon. So I love Japanese anime. Growing up, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, this is definitely my favorite by far. So I used to play this as a little girl. I was always Sailor Moon, loved Sailor Moon. Back then I was a little blondie. Now I don't even know if brown hair, but I love her so much. One of my themes, so I think it was 2020 or 2019, my theme wear for the WBFF when I competed in fitness was Sailor Moon. So my outfit was so cool. I think I can find some videos and some pictures. She got the wings really wrong. They were more like Buzz, Lightyear wings. But the actual dress was so cool. It was the best day of my life. So I was so excited when I saw that they have all of the Sailor Moon girls on the walls. We're doing my second and final exercise on my glute medius. So I don't know whether I'm gonna need the pads yet, but just in case you are wanting to get yourself some of these, I probably should list them on my website so that you guys can download them, but they're just from Amazon. So they come stuck together like this. So it was one pad. Obviously that has its advantages, but for this machine, these are the ones that I'm using. So they're Amazon, $25 for this thing, but they fit in your bag, which is convenient. The other ones that I've seen Brett use, the wedges or the blocks, they're a little thicker, heavier, and they didn't fit in my bags because they came as this one piece. So yeah, this is actually even more practical because they're smaller. So I don't know whether this is going to give me a nice full range of motion yet. Let's see. Ideally, to get your medius into a fully lengthened position, and again, full range of motion, whatever your full range of motion is probably here. So this machine, the tension starts there. So I am going to use these just because it'll allow me to get to failure a little bit quicker. We'll see what this weight feels like. Okay, so again, I'm doing relatively high reps for this. Yeah, that's good. So you could put your feet out here. Just trying to think what that's doing right now compared to bringing my feet in. Just feeling it out. This just feels more comfortable for me personally, and it probably has something to do again with your like lever lengths. So I've got relatively long femurs, but if you don't, you might feel a little bit more comfortable putting your feet out here. But it's up to you. And I'm also pressing through my toes. That tends to help activate, for whatever reason, my glute medius a little bit more, and it's less quaddy too. Hey Sam, I got a question for you. You may not know the answer. If I go from putting my feet in like close to me, so I've got right ankles here, I feel to me that gives me good levers, like good leverage and good activation. If I take my feet out a little bit further, probably just feels harder. And might that be because the angle, it's an open angle? Like I don't feel like I've got the same leverage or the strength. This is a Brett or a Kat's question. Yeah, this is biomechanics, guys, biomechanics. So I think it just, so for me, like when I put my feet out on that front prong, it's opening up that angle. So it's no longer a right angle. To me, it just feels like it's a weaker position. Maybe it isolates my glute medius a little bit more. So I'm probably not as strong. I might have to take weight down when I do that. So here feels very comfortable, but I'm also using the whole stack. So maybe if I got too strong, maybe I take my feet out because I need to be able to efficiently or effectively load. So I don't know, food for thought. Maybe you guys have some thoughts about that. Hey girls. I don't know where this came from, but this would be super helpful for like your kneeling exercises. I have one that's about 3 times this long, about this big, and I just fold it. But yeah, this would be great for anything kneeling. So search mini. I'm guessing this is what, 10 inches, something like that, by 6. I'm gonna look this up when I get home. We're gonna go over and head up the chest fly. We don't have this machine at either our gym, sorry, it's just regular area here. So we're gonna do a hit a chest fly. I've already done my other chest work this week. One of my programs has a unilateral flat dumbbell press, which is extremely challenging. So it's, I guess, anti-rotational because you've got to stabilize and kind of counter the weight because you're bringing just one dumbbell down on either side. So I love that exercise. It's a little more time consuming. So again, I only ever put 2 exercises into my programs that are unilateral. Otherwise your sessions just take too long, sorry. We'll mix things up a little bit with this chest fly. So let's go check that out. All right, so last exercise for today's program is going to be a Premier brand. They seem to have a lot of this equipment in this gym, chest fly. So I just tried to find, I did a quick Scholar search to see if I could find any meaningful differences between like a fly exercise for your chest versus a pressing, and nothing seemed to come up. So again, I can't be 100% confident in this, but I would have to assume that when it comes to flies, so like your abduction exercise for your chest versus a pressing exercise, you're still hitting your pec major, pec minor. Pec minor? That's a new one. Pec major and pec minor. So again, just to mix things up, I would include both in your program, just so that there's not too much repetition. And if there are any subtle differences, I know for me, I feel it quite a bit more, at least in the center part of my chest, when like you're bringing your hands together. So I feel it more there. Perhaps I'm getting like into a more shortened position. And it's just a nice squeeze. But again, that's not to say that it's more effective for your chest hypertrophy than doing presses. So I'm gonna go do a set. You want to say something? That's the actual scientist.
Nobody out there run that study because someone inevitably will. And in 8 weeks, even if growth in a chest fly is better for one area of the chest than, let's say, just a normal chest press, I don't think anyone's ultrasound skills are good enough to measure that change. And so often the studies that you read that compare exercise A to exercise B, or like 1 rep in reserve versus failure, these things are so similar And the muscle growth that you can achieve over 8 weeks is going to be very, very small. There's no way you're going to measure a difference. And online, people love to conclude X is better than Y or A was different than B. And like the certainty that you have in any of these things is just so minuscule. But that fuels most of content on social media.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I mean, in resistance trained populations, 8 weeks is almost a pointless study. Like, what were we ever expecting to see in 8 weeks anyway? Like,
I'm of the opinion that 8-week studies tell you does something work or does it not work. But the level of precision you'd need to tell if A was just a little bit better than B is just something that we do not have in exercise science, or at least with the sample sizes that people are employing. Most studies have, like we read a study the other day, 7 people, 9 people, 5 people per group. You're never going to detect the difference. You need 25, 30 people per group for the small difference that you're trying to measure. And even that might not be enough. But like I saw content this week on just people over interpreting these studies that really move the needle 0% for me. I don't find them interesting, but I'm also bitter and done with most of it, I guess.
So for those of you that don't know, this is Dr. Samuel Baxter. So he is the exercise science professor at University of South Florida and runs the muscle hypertrophy lab. So Sam has probably conducted over 150 studies that specifically look at hypertrophy adaptations in trained and untrained individuals, and probably many other different training adaptations too. So not just muscle growth, but yeah, you're very lucky to have this guy in these videos because he thinks really differently. And I think there's a certain like narrative that we hear quite a bit on social media, and the conversations that we have are always kind of pushing back a little bit on some of those conversations and just trying to think a little bit more critically and outside the box. So I have really enjoyed like getting to know the resistance training field even like more than nutrition. But I want to say one more thing about studies. So we were just reviewing a recent paper that looked at muscle hypertrophy in response to different sets of like calorie conditions. So there was a maintenance condition, a modest condition, and then a high surplus condition. This was actually a paper carried out with the lead author, Dr. Eric Helm. Some of you are probably familiar with his work. But again, I've seen multiple interpretations and hot takes of that paper where, you know, the influencer that's reviewing that study has come to the conclusion that based on this paper, there are no meaningful benefits to being in a surplus based on that one study. We just reviewed that in our recent issue of Be a Brain, and if you actually look at the total number of study participants, there were only 5 people per condition. So again, just thinking about you know, the power of a study, these studies are probably underpowered and aren't necessarily going to tell us you know, if there is any meaningful difference between, you know, the groups. And the other thing was, this was a group of trained individuals. Now, the study that was actually like the training program that was to put together, when you go and look at the weekly set number for each of the muscle groups they were measuring, so they measured 4 different sites. It was the vastus lateralis, medialis, triceps, and biceps. There was only one muscle group that grew, and that was the bicep. And it was the only muscle group that had direct work. But it was also the only muscle group that actually had a volume that, you know, what you and I have talked about in all of our training sessions would actually elicit growth for a resistance trained individual. So, you know, when you hear things being spoken about on social media, I think it's really important to like go and read the studies. What did they really say? Was it set up to actually help you succeed or even find out the actual outcome under question? So, yeah. I think I got stronger. Nice. Is that too light? That was better. I'm gonna be so sore on this muscle group tomorrow. And probably worse the next day. Because I'm only doing like 6 sets a week on my chest. It feels like it's a brand new muscle group that I'm training every single week. So I'm constantly sore, especially if I do something new. So I've probably done mostly I don't know, horizontal plane, lots of presses. So to do a chest fly, which is again a new novel stimulus. I haven't trained in this plane before. Ooh, so sore. So one of the things that I really like about this particular machine is that despite the significant differences in our arm length, it has nice adjustable handles. So it works perfectly for me and it still keeps you in the same movement path as it does for a Sam who has the arm span of, I don't know, something with really long arms.
Sure.
What's the dodo? Does it have long arms? Probably not. No.
That's my brain capacity.
Not a dodo, something with a long arm span, an eagle. Common to hear on social media, people focusing on the stretch, or that maybe the stretch part of the movement is the most important part because, I don't know why. I don't really know what they're saying. I don't know what they're saying.
They don't know either.
They don't know either, yeah.
But I do think, like you pointed out, going to the full range of motion on this exercise, because the weight was too light initially, helped me reach failure.
Yeah.
But it may not have done that if I would have bounced out of the bottom of the range of motion, if I would have used the stretch of the tendon to just make it easy, but I controlled it in the stretch and then let the force transients dissipate. So then I have to concentrically overcome in a arguably weakened state because there's less overlap of your actin and myosin when you're in that lengthened state. So sometimes you can use the long ranges of motion to help you reach failure if you control the weight, if you chose a weight that was too light for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think everybody online can agree that long muscle length content could just take a break for till 2028. And then we can get back on this topic again once there's some good research with large sample sizes, unbiased, all these sorts of things. Yeah, it's like one of those things that's become annoying because you hear about it every single day. And the people doing it love the drama that they stir up. So
yeah, I think right now it seems like depending on the muscle group as well, the findings are a little inconsistent. So we've got some, and I think I spoke about this in our last video, there are some studies that have supported the use or implementation of lengthened partials in the calf. We might have also seen that in the muscles of the quadricep. For instance, like in a leg extension, there might be some benefits to training that particular exercise in a lengthened position. But then we look at other muscle groups, triceps and biceps, and the data is significantly less consistent. And in fact, it might actually show that it is not superior. So I think, again, like Sam said, until we have more good quality studies, it's probably not really fair for us to say that you should always train just specifically in the lengthened position. I think a full range of motion exercise is probably the best approach for now. Alrighty guys, so that concludes our workout today. I'm finally back out of the heat. I'm not in this hypoxic state and my brain is finally working again. But I really hope that you enjoyed, I guess, all of the different machinery that we've used today and just the general chit chat about lifting weights and how to optimize muscle growth. Speaking of optimizing muscle growth, if you are in the market for new programming, then please go and take a look at BiaFit, my new workout platform. So we have hundreds of different programs suitable for beginners all the way through to advanced lifters. There are all of our favorite kind of training techniques implemented, fancy methods, and all of the analytics that you need to track your progress using a scientific approach. So you can purchase that as either an Android or iOS, so Apple phone. You can get it on our website and everything else. So thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in my next video.